somebody bought it at some point and wasn't ever ours. Well, somebody gave us a bunch of new ones. Don't have markers. Yes, we do. This one we've never, most people don't know it's Pain Pledge. And the courage, most people get courage. Okay, the choir is going to be encouraged. It's going to be led because the and for sure, I'm going to do the leading, and Betsy's going to do the following. And people can pick whichever one they want to do. So I'm just going to give us a note and I'm just going to start.
Okay. All my memories of love is up in there.
That's the one. It's a play chant. Jane Frisch says that she said not breaking the first 3 lines or breaking the last. There's a lot of conversation about breaking. That's the way they're using. That's the way they sing.
Yeah, I can't.
I guarantee you won't hear any worse than the congregation. If that makes sense. I knew the original, I don't recognize it, I know one about it. by ear, yeah. She'll announce it from up there. When the children are leaving, she will announce, time for the children to leave. Say something like, let's sing about, or maybe she won't say that. God knows what to say. Time to start. Okay. Time to start. You're the first thing. Yeah. 38. No, that was
My name is Jake, and I'm a member of this congregation. Michaela will be lighting our chalice this morning. Please join me in your chalice lighting words in the order of service. We light this chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, to remind us to connect in spirituality and service, to care for each other and the world, and to create loving community.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Megan Cody, and I'm a member of this congregation. Today, for our Time for All Ages, I'd like to share the story of The Existential Giraffe by Eric Kesselman. There once was a giraffe named Sammy, or was there? Sammy had a big problem. Sammy thought he was a giraffe, but how could he be sure? What if he were really a butterfly who thought he was a giraffe? What if he were really a person, or a fish, or a tree? Worst of all, what if Sammy didn't exist at all but just thought he did? The possibility of not really existing made Sammy very, very sad. Then one day Sammy realized maybe he couldn't be sure he was a giraffe just because he looked like a giraffe. And maybe he couldn't be certain that the sun was really yellow and the sky was really blue. But he knew for sure what he thought he saw. And that meant he really existed as something, or how could he think at all? And even if Sammy was an imaginary giraffe, that was no reason to be an unhappy imaginary giraffe. Sammy decided not to worry so much and just try to be happy, whatever he really was. And Sammy lived happily ever after, or at least He thought he did.
Welcome to worship at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greensboro. Unitarian Universalists believe that each person has a trustworthy relationship with the Spirit, with the Holy, with the source of all life, with what some call God, though we name it and know it differently from one another. And we believe that because we are interconnected, nobody is free until we are all free. So we strive to build beloved community here on earth, in our fellowship with one another, and in our beloved community, and in our work with justice. If you're visiting this morning, we invite you to fill out a form at the visitors table and to join us for coffee and fellowship after the service. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are with us. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are growing, all learning and all loved. Please turn your cell phones to silent. We are mask optional in worship, except for that section in the back. Our ministry team here at UUCG is Cindy Dillard, our Director of Children's and Youth Ministry, Julie Hamilton, our Congregational Administrator, and Reverend Sadie Lansdale. Her contact information is on the back of your order of service. We are pleased to have Lynn Gentry, our guest musician this morning. A covenant contains the promises we make to each other in response to the great gift of living, holding ourselves to these holy aspirations. Will you please join us in our church covenant? We, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greensboro, do covenant to promote a search for personal meaning, respecting the individual's truth in a community process of quest. Speak and act with caring, courtesy, and love, thereby maintaining emotional, physical, and spiritual safety for all. To support UUCG and denominational efforts with our resources. Combat injustice while promoting equality. To nurture our children on their spiritual journey. And hold ourselves to this covenant, especially during times of conflict and disagreement. Would you please rise in body or in spirit for our opening song, All My Memories of Love, number 336 in your gray hymnal. If you are joining us in the sanctuary, won't you please wave hello to everyone joining us online? If you're online, go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. And if you're in person, let's take a moment to greet our neighbor.
Good morning.
How beautiful it is to be together. I would like to share the words of Leslie Takahashi, my minister from when I lived in Charlottesville, Virginia. We gather as many drops, each winding our own path down life's surfaces and ruts. Here we pull together as a single body, flowing together for a time. Together we are a stream, at times even a river. For with our shared force, we can travel toward oceans of meaning and seas of connection. During these few minutes of silence, you can focus on something you're grateful for, or someone you are remembering especially today, or just the sensation of your chair supporting you. Will you find a comfortable place in your seat and take a few easy breaths as we settle into our shared silence together? We bring the echoes in our hearts before our community and before the holy in this sacred space and time. If you're online, this is the time to share your joys and sorrows with one another in the chat. If you're in person and you have a milestone you would like added to our prayers, you can fill out a yellow card which the ushers will collect from you. If there's a joy on your heart, place a plant in the vase. If there's a sorrow, place a stone in the bowl. You may light a candle of prayer and presence for someone you're remembering especially today. If you're not sure how you're feeling, or maybe you're feeling a little antsy, there are pipe cleaners in the back to fidget with, mandalas to color, or you may have brought needlework you can feel free to do. In church, we practice becoming more fully human. This is our time to take stock of how we arrive here and to take what we need, knowing that the table is set for us all. Will you join me in prayer and presence? In this moment, bathed in silence and song, we offer our joys and sorrows alike, knowing that they are woven fine. Dave and Dory describe a sorrow for the people in Morocco, and our prayers of compassion are with you and with all of them. We have two joys this morning. Amelia Maddox is grateful for 18 years of marriage with Jake. Today is our anniversary. And the second joy, Jake Maddox wishes a very happy anniversary to his wife. Thank you for these 18 years together. We share your joy in this occasion. Thank you for sharing it with us. We name aloud or in the chat those people on our hearts, living or dead, near or far, that this community might hold them in love. We offer this prayer by Linda Hansen. Much of our human struggle is with what we do not know or understand. It is often difficult not to want answers, or even more difficult not to think we have them already. May we experience what we do not know, not as an individual failure, but as an invitation to community. May we seek not the true answers so much as the true questions, knowing that true questions make of our lives meaningful, even if sometimes restless journeys. May we be grateful for the restless voices in our communities. May we be good company to one another in our questions and our journey. So may it be. We ask these things for ourselves, for those we love, and for those we do not yet love. Amen.
Now, children and youth of all ages are invited to join their teachers in the RE wing for snack, for play, and fellowship. Go in peace, go in love, and go enjoy.
Go
Before I begin, I'd like to note that I will be talking about the loss of a loved one to suicide and sharing part of an account by a Holocaust survivor. Please do what you need to do to take care of yourselves. I told you about Sammy, the existential giraffe, in the Time for All Ages because I thought it was more appropriate for the kids. But I really want to discuss a different story this morning. It's a parable that originally appeared in the Talmud and is now known as Death in Samara, or An Appointment with Death. This version is the one told in Viktor Frankl's memoir, Man's Search for Meaning. A rich and mighty Persian once walked in his garden with one of his servants. The servant cried that he had just encountered death, who had threatened him. He begged his master to give him his fastest horse so that he could make haste and flee to Tehran, which he could reach that same evening. The master consented, and the servant galloped off on the horse. On returning to his house, the master himself met Death and questioned him. "Why did you terrify and threaten my servant?" "I did not threaten him. I only showed surprise in still finding him here when I planned to meet him tonight in Tehran," said Death. In Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl tells the story of his life as a Holocaust survivor. He was a psychiatrist in Vienna, Austria, until the Nazis deported him and his family, along with other Jews, to the concentration camps. Frankl recounted the story of death in Tehran when he was writing about one of the many times that fate passed him by. As a doctor, he was on a list of prisoners to be taken to a rest camp for sick patients. At least that was the official story. Everyone thought that there was a good chance that the transport was really going to the gas chambers. The chief doctor pulled some strings and informed Frankl that he had the option to have his name taken off the list. However, Frankl decided that he wanted to, quote, "let fate take its course." So he kept his name on the list and departed with the transport. This time they really did go to a rest camp. Later he learned what had happened to the comrades he had left behind. Those who had pitied me remained in a camp where famine was to rage even more fiercely than in our new camp. They tried to save themselves, but they only sealed their own fates. The story of death in Tehran makes me think about the plans that we make for our lives and how sometimes things don't turn out the way that they're supposed to. Take a moment and think back to where you were 22 years ago today, September 10th, 2001. On that forgettable Monday, I was almost 22 years old and had just graduated from college the previous spring. I was living in Chapel Hill and working at a job in Raleigh that I disliked, conducting clinical trials for pharmaceutical companies. I told my family that I was working for the man. It was not the life that I had planned for myself. I had decided when I was 12 that I was going to be a clinical psychologist, and the path was clear. After middle and high school, I was going to go to college and then graduate school, and I was going to stay there until I couldn't possibly get any more educated. That spring of 2001, I had my first encounter with life not going according to plan. I was a senior in college. I had applied to several clinical psychology graduate programs, flew to Philadelphia for my first big interview, and then the bottom dropped out. I didn't get in, anywhere. All the letters read, "Dear Ms. Cody, we regret to inform you." I'm embarrassed to admit it now, but this was a shock to me at the time. I had always done well in school, and being a student was the only life I knew. When I learned that I didn't get into graduate school, I felt like I lost my sense of identity, like I might as well have been an imaginary giraffe. Eventually, the shock wore off. I got the job in Raleigh, rented my first apartment with my college roommate, Kohan, and life fell back into its normal rhythms. The world became a scarier place on September 11th, 2001, but I was insulated from the worst of the suffering. 16 months later, however, I had a loss that hit much closer to home. In fact, I first read Man's Search for Meaning in 2003, when I was trying to cope with the greatest tragedy of my life, the death of my sister Erin by suicide. Erin was 3 years younger than me, and we were always close growing up. She was a good person, funny, compassionate, and creative. She was a social justice warrior before we knew that was supposed to be a bad thing. Erin also struggled with bipolar disorder, and from the ages of 16 to 20, she suffered through many episodes of depression and was in and out of the hospital. She worked hard to get better and wanted to be a normal kid. Despite her illness, she was an A student at UNC and was considering a career in social work. After one suicide attempt and hospitalization when Erin was a college freshman, the dean of students informed her that she could no longer stay in on-campus housing. This was how she ended up sharing a room with me in the rundown apartment that Kohan and I lovingly called Duplexia. Erin lived there for her sophomore year of college, which had just begun by that fateful September of 2001. My cat Tommy also lived with us, so we had a full house. Erin knew how much I hated the job in Raleigh, and she pestered me every step of the way until I had secured a new position working for the UNC Department of Psychiatry. That environment was completely different. My boss and colleagues were wonderful. I loved what I was doing, and Kohan was also working in the hospital in radiology. I started seeing a sensitive and insightful therapist of my own and was finally getting treatment for my mental health struggles. I was just where I needed to be. Erin moved out of Duplexia for her junior year of college and lived in a room at the Wesley Foundation, the Methodist campus ministry at UNC. It was there that she died in January 2003. That was never supposed to be part of the plan. Anne Lamott wrote, "You will lose someone you can't live without, and your heart will be badly broken. And the bad news is that you will never completely get over the loss of your beloved. But this is also the good news. They live forever in your broken heart that doesn't seal back up. And you come through. It's like having a broken leg that never heals perfectly, that still hurts when the weather gets cold, but you learn to dance with the limp." Somehow I learned to dance in the years after Erin died. Don't ask me to demonstrate, because my signature move is a mix of the Charleston and the Macarena. Kohan and my other close friends became my siblings of heart, along with my brother Adam. With their help and that of my parents and my work family at UNC and my therapist, I grew through the sorrow. Life took another unexpected turn in 2004, just before our second Christmas without Erin. My dentist found a lump in one of my lymph nodes, and I was eventually diagnosed with thyroid cancer at the age of 25. I had a very treatable form of cancer, but I still had to go through major surgery, withdrawal from thyroid hormones, and radioactive iodine therapy. And I had an understanding of the reality of death that I think few people do when they're in their 20s. Erin had been the closest person in the world to me. If she could die, maybe I could too. Again, though, I was where I needed to be, because I had my surgery and subsequent treatment in the hospital where Kohan and I both worked. I had a strong network of social support. My parents also lived not too far away and took care of me, even when that meant cooking meals for the low iodine diet and staying at least 6 feet away from me for a week because I was literally radioactive. I continued to see my wonderful therapist and continued to work at the job that I loved. There were some dark days, but I was never alone through them. 4 years after my graduate school rejection, I was ready to reapply. Because of the experience I had gotten at UNC, my application was much stronger. This time, I got multiple offers and was able to go to my first choice program at the University of Virginia. I got phenomenal professional training there, and more importantly, I met several of the friends who have become the core of my chosen family, some of whom have joined us virtually today. I'm incredibly lucky to be surrounded by love and support from both my family of origin and the friends that I've made along the way. What if I had gotten the future that I thought I wanted, that I had planned for? If I had gotten into graduate school in 2001, I would have gone. I would have been in Philadelphia or a similarly unfamiliar city, battling intense social anxiety, away from my support system on September 11th. I would have missed being there for the last year and a half of Erin's life. As hard as it was to take her in and be by her side during her illness, that time was still precious to me. I wouldn't have had my friends and family nearby or my therapist to help me heal after Erin's death. And I wouldn't have had my understanding boss or caring coworkers to visit me in the hospital when I got cancer. And I might never have met the loved ones whose paths crossed mine at UVA. In Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl described how people could find spiritual freedom in their thoughts, behaviors, and attitudes, even in the face of immense suffering. He believed that the will to meaning is the primary motivation in life, that people can find salvation in the most difficult moments of existence by looking toward a future goal. He quotes Nietzsche, "He who has a why to live for can bear with almost any how." But sometimes we may not be sure what the why is, and these are the times when we have to let fate take its course. I want to share one more instance of life not going according to plan. Fast forward to the spring of 2019. I was finally a clinical psychologist and was working as an assistant professor at a health professions college in Atlanta. My life in academia was pretty well laid out. I was going to get a grant for my research, get promoted from assistant to associate professor, get tenure, and buy a house. I wasn't thrilled about putting down roots in Atlanta when my family lived in North Carolina, but I was going to make it work. Then, I didn't get the grants that I had applied for, and the dean of my college told me that she wasn't going to support my tenure application. If you're familiar with academia, you may know that this was the death knell for my academic career, at least at that institution. I would be allowed to work at the school for one more year before I would lose my job. I would be forced to leave the students I loved and the research program that I had spent 5 years building. It was a devastating blow. So how did I end up in front of you at UUCG on this fine morning? One of my dear friends from graduate school forwarded me a job posting from the VA Healthcare Center in Kernersville. I got a job as a primary care psychologist, and here I am. I moved back to North Carolina in September 2019, turned 40 that month, and started my job at the VA. My parents were living in Boone at this point, and my brother and his wife were just outside of Winston-Salem. Fate wasn't done with me yet, though. We all know what happened 6 months later in March 2020. It was hard to be an essential worker in healthcare at the height of the pandemic. The scariest part for me was the fear that I might give my parents a potentially deadly illness. My mom is immunocompromised, and the only way I could safely see my family in person for the first year of the pandemic was by taking day trips to visit my parents in Boone. We always met outside, masked, with my parents at one end of the porch and me at the other, no matter how cold or windy it was. Then I would drive back to High Point at the end of the day. Sometimes my brother and my sister-in-law would join us, and we would have to maneuver around keeping 3 households separate. As difficult as it could be, I was grateful to have the chance to shiver on the porch in the mountains. There's no way I could have visited my family in person if I had been living 6 hours away in Atlanta. I'm now working in oncology, providing mental health care to veterans with cancer. I'm back where I grew up in North Carolina. Although I'm grateful for the friends that I made and the time that I spent in Atlanta, it wasn't home. And the pandemic was the push that I needed to reach out to Reverend Sadie and discover my spiritual community at UUCG. You could interpret the death in Tehran story as being about fear bringing on the outcome that we're trying to avoid, but it makes me think more about fate. Something about the intersection between our fate and our choices speaks to me. As Frankl said, life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. Sometimes the situation may require him to shape his own fate by action. Sometimes man may be required simply to accept fate, to bear his cross. What is the grace in this story? I don't agree with the everything happens for a reason platitude, in part because I think we play a more active role in creating meaning for ourselves. Jake talked to us a couple of weeks ago about creating meaning in the absurd. Sometimes life doesn't follow our expectations, but we still have some choice in what we do with the hands that we're dealt. That could be finding moments of humor and pushing your boulder up the hill, or finding joy while trying to rebuild a war-torn city. It could be losing a beloved sister, but learning that you can also find room in your heart for your chosen family. It could be that choosing to make meaning from your sorrows over and over again can help you on the corkscrew of life, as Katie Claude told me. Even Sammy the giraffe learned to stop trying to figure out the one true answer of his existence and just let himself live happily ever after. The you of 22 years ago could never have known what those 2 decades would bring. I don't wish the losses and failures and sorrows that I've experienced on myself, but I do value the grace that I've received in healing from them. Maybe everything was going according to plan all along, just not mine. May we make meaning and joy out of this corkscrew of life. May it be so for you and so for us all. Amen. Please rise in body or in spirit for hymn number 188 in your great hymnal.
Our offering this month goes to the Triad Health Project. Since 1986, the Triad Health Project has promoted sexual health and justice through radical care, love, and equity, while working to free our community from HIV, its stigma, and its root causes. If you'd like to make a contribution for our offering to be split with the Triad Health Project, you can do so at the link in the description of this video. You can text GIVE to the number in your order of service. You can also mail a check. Ushers will now come forward to collect the offering, which will be gratefully received. Now would you please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, We Laugh, We Cry, number 354 in your gray hymnal. We will sing verses 1 and verse 4.
We
Now will you join me in our chalice extinguishing words? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. If you're online and you'd like to get more connected, you can click the link in the description of this YouTube video and let us know how we can connect with you. If you're in person, you can fill out a pink form at the visitors table. Visit our website for our contact form or simply stick around after the worship. We will also have a post-worship reflection here in the sanctuary to talk about how the service speaks to our lives. I have a few announcements. There's a water communion service September 17th. Everyone is invited to bring a container of water from a place and time that has held meaning for you over the past year. If you have had a loss this year, there will be a gathering on our labyrinth with Reverend Sadie after the service. This will be followed by an all-church potluck. That's September 17th. Volunteers are needed for the Greensboro Pride Festival. As a sponsor of Greensboro Pride, our church will have a table to welcome festival visitors and provide information for those who are interested in learning more about us. If this sounds like fun, the Welcoming Congregation Committee would love your help representing UUCG at the Pride on Sunday, October 1st. Sign up for a 2-hour time slot there's a bit.ly/UUCG-Pride. Also, there will be the first of 4 workshops for adult OWL, Our Whole Lives. It's exploring ideas about sexuality on September 30th at 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. There will be childcare provided, and we ask that you please RSVP by September 24th. If you have more questions, you can contact Cindy Dillard at uucgre@gmail.com. During our postlude, anyone who needs to or wishes to leave may go with our blessing.
Our benediction today comes from the poet Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And now, to leave this place filled with song, please rise in body or in spirit, and place your hands over your hearts to sing our benediction hymn, Shalom Havarih.